The mailroom at a high-security signals intelligence base isn't exactly where you expect warmth. But that day, for just a moment, I felt it. My shift had ended, and my coworkers, tired, over-caffeinated analysts, were cracking jokes as I walked in. The air smelled faintly of old paper and static. But there it was, bright and ridiculous, sitting on the counter like it didn't know where it was. A birthday package, wrapped in sparkly pink paper, absolutely Chloe. I smiled. I didn't get many personal deliveries. That was part of the life I chose. Quiet, invisible, protected. But this felt like a thread to something simpler. I reached for it, and then everything changed. "Step away, Sharma." The voice was sharp. It cut through the chatter like a scalpel. Colonel Evans stood there, rigid, unreadable. Gone was the mentor I'd worked under for years. In his place was the man who enforced national security protocols without hesitation. I froze mid-reach. "Sir?" I asked. He didn't answer, just pointed at the shipping label. I followed his gaze. The warmth in my chest dropped like a stone. There, in my sister's bubbly handwriting, right beneath the address to a classified P.O. box inside a sensitive facility, were 7 words. "From your favorite little spy." It was a stupid joke, an old one. Chloe had called me her little spy ever since I enlisted. She never really believed I did anything serious. She thought I was probably stamping forms in some basement. A cute little government job to make mom and dad proud. But this wasn't the real world anymore. This was the world I lived in, the one of classified watch lists and counterintelligence protocols. And that phrase, that exact combination of words, it wasn't harmless. It was a known recognition signal used by an active SVR sleeper network. It was on a list monitored by an automated system that didn't know Chloe's sense of humor or her ignorance. All it saw was hostile intent. Colonel Evans took the package in silence. His face didn't shift. My coworkers fell quiet. The chatter dissolved. That was the moment I knew. The lockdown was already happening. 30 minutes later, I was in a gray room with no windows, sitting beside my commander. Across from me was the woman who had always made me feel small, my sister Chloe. Her mascara was smeared, her voice hoarse. She kept trying to catch my eye. I didn't give her that comfort. Colonel Evans dropped a file on the table. He looked straight at me, not at her. "Specialist Sharma," he said. "Counterintelligence requires your official assessment. Is this individual a threat, a witting accomplice, or merely a useful idiot?" I didn't flinch. I didn't breathe. I watched Chloe's expression shift, confusion, fear, then disbelief. That was the moment it hit her. I wasn't the one in trouble. I was part of the tribunal. And this wasn't just some family misunderstanding anymore. This was federal. This was operational. Chloe's joke had triggered Operation Red Flag, a protocol that assumes guilt first and demands proof to clear it. It didn't care about intent. It cared about risk. And as I sat in that room watching her unravel, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not anger, not revenge. Clarity. Because for once, my world was the one with consequences. You wouldn't think Christmas could sting like that. But when you grow up in a house where attention equals affection, silence is its own kind of scar. That night, the tree was lit. The house smelled like cinnamon and new candles. The dining table was full. Turkey, wine, laughter. Everyone was there. But I wasn't. Not really. Because it was always the Chloe show. My sister breezed in late, as usual, dressed like she was headed to a magazine cover shoot. Her phone was practically glued to her hand, notifications lighting up her screen like fireworks. Okay, she laughed. "You're not going to believe this one. My campaign for Zest Cola just hit 12 million impressions." And just like that, the room bent around her. Our parents lit up. My father looked like he'd swallowed pride whole. Mom was already passing around Chloe's phone so everyone could marvel at some trending hashtag she'd engineered. I sat quietly, sipping water. No one asked me what I was working on. No one ever did. It had always been like that. Chloe with her stage lights, me with my books. She needed the room. I learned to shrink in it. But that night something flickered inside me, a tiny spark of hope. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe I was just tired of feeling erased. When the noise died down, I cleared my throat. I just got my D-Lab scores back. Defense Language Aptitude Battery. I scored in the top 1%. Silence, real sharp cutlery on plate silence. My dad looked at me, eyebrows drawn. "What's a D-Lab?" he asked, already bored. Before I could answer, he patted my hand like I was 5 years old. "That's nice, honey. All those books finally paying off, huh?" Then he turned back to Chloe. "She's out there making waves, you know, in the real world." And just like that, I vanished again. I caught Chloe's eye. She didn't smirk. She didn't gloat. She pitied me. That was worse. Because pity assumes the other person is too unaware to be angry. It assumes ignorance. But I knew, I always knew. The internal ledger in my head ticked another line. Science fair trophy, never displayed. National merit scholarship shrugged off. This moment, minimized in 5 seconds flat. They never understood what I did, they never tried, and the truth is, they didn't want to. It was easier to celebrate what they could explain at cocktail parties. Chloe's doing a campaign with Pepsi, made sense. Anya detects signal breaches on secure government networks? Not so much. In their world, I was quiet Anya, a government drone, a nice, stable girl who wouldn't embarrass them. In my world, I was Echo 7, a lead analyst in a skiff, where silence meant concentration and a single word could stop a war. A place where no one needed you to be loud, only right. I remember one shift, a few weeks before that Christmas dinner. I caught something, a jitter in a data stream. Most would have missed it. It looked like static, but my gut said otherwise. I flagged it, traced it, documented the breach. 5 minutes later, Colonel Evans was behind me. He didn't say much, just one sentence. Good catch, Echo 7. You just saved the CENTCOM network. That sentence meant more than every compliment I'd ever fished for from my family, because it was earned. It was real. That was the world I belonged to. But no matter how many protocols I ran, how many networks I protected, I could never patch the signal loss between me and my own family. And that night, staring at Chloe through the twinkling lights of a perfectly decorated tree, I realized something painfully clear. They didn't just overlook me, they chose not to see me. There's a silence in a skiff that's different from anywhere else. Not the silence of loneliness, not the suffocating stillness I knew at the family dinner table. This silence hums with purpose. It's the silence of people listening, to patterns, to threats, to whispers inside the noise. Inside that sealed room, the lights are dimmed low to ease eye strain, but the monitors glow electric blue. Walls are lined with servers. Screens flicker with data, encrypted bursts, location pings, intercepted signals. The outside world doesn't exist in here. We're not allowed windows. But that night, I didn't need a view. I had a stream of raw SIGINT from a high-threat region running across my screen. My headphones were snug against my ears, tuned to the quiet language of our adversaries. Then it happened. A blip. To anyone else, it would have looked like a glitch, a random flicker. But I'd seen this before, in simulations, in training, and once in a redacted case study that gave me nightmares for a week. We called it a jitter, a micro-variation in transmission, subtle enough to bypass most filters, but not mine. This was no glitch. This was a piggyback signal, a covert attempt to ride an existing data stream into our secure channels. It meant one thing, a live breach. I didn't freeze. There was no time for doubt. My fingers moved fast, steady. I flagged the anomaly, traced its origin vector, cross-referenced satellite nodes. I initiated countermeasures with protocol-locked commands. My report was clinical, concise, complete. I signed it not as Anya, not as Sharma. Echo 7. 5 minutes later, Colonel Evans was standing behind me. He didn't announce himself, just read the report silently from his tablet. Then he looked at me. No smile, no hand pat, no performative praise. Just one sentence. Good catch, Echo 7. You just prevented a catastrophic breach of the CENTCOM network. That was it, but that was everything. In that freezing, fluorescent-lit room, I felt more seen than I ever had at home. Because in this world, no one cared if you were loud or charming, or whether your job sounded glamorous over cocktails. All that mattered was performance, clarity, precision, truth. Here I wasn't the boring one, I was the firewall. I was the difference between safety and exposure. And it wasn't just that night, it was every night. My job meant scanning for threats no one else noticed. It meant looking beneath surface noise, interpreting shadow signals, decoding intent. It meant living in the world beneath the world. But that life required sacrifice. It meant not talking about work at holidays. It meant skipping birthdays, canceling visits, staying silent when people asked, "So what do you actually do?" It meant letting Chloe laugh and roll her eyes when she called me her little spy. It meant swallowing my frustration when our parents congratulated her for making a soda brand trend on Twitter, but couldn't pronounce my division's name. It meant being misunderstood deliberately, but I accepted that. Because the work mattered more than the recognition. Until Chloe's package arrived. And suddenly my two worlds, one loud and careless, one silent and precise, collided. And only one had rules strong enough to survive the impact. After the lockdown lifted, I found myself in a briefing room designed to make emotion irrelevant. Sterile table, blank walls, one chair too many. On the table sat the birthday package, sealed now in a clear evidence bag, its once cheerful wrapping dulled by protocol. It looked absurdly small, almost pathetic. Across from me, Colonel Evans sat with his fingers steepled, watching me with the same calm he'd used when delivering battlefield losses. This triggered an automated response, he said. Operation Red Flag. I already knew, but hearing it out loud made it real. The phrase Chloe had written, "from your favorite little spy," was a match for a known hostile recognition signal. The system didn't care about jokes. It saw data, probability, risk. That phrase, coupled with the fact that it was mailed to a sensitive signals intelligence facility, activated the protocol. Red flag doesn't forgive, it investigates. The system assumes hostile intent until proven otherwise. And right now, Chloe wasn't my sister. She was a data point, one that required a full counterintelligence review. Still, the colonel offered me an out. "We can file this as a non-credible domestic instance," he said, his voice low, almost gentle. "Overzealous system flag, it happens." He paused. "You say the word, Sharma, and this report disappears." I stared at the evidence bag. For a second, I saw the easy path, smoothing it over, protecting her, protecting them. Pretending the incident never happened. Swallowing it, like I always had. Letting Chloe off the hook. Again. But something had shifted in me, something old and deep. This wasn't about revenge, I didn't want to punish her. But for once in her life, in all our lives, Chloe had to live in my world. And in my world, actions have consequences. I lifted my eyes to meet the colonel's. "No, sir," I said. "The protocol was triggered by the data provided. The protocol must be followed to its conclusion. My relationship to the sender is irrelevant." He didn't nod, didn't smile, but something settled in his eyes. Respect. And maybe a trace of empathy. He slid the file toward me. "Then you'll begin the preliminary investigation. You have full authority." I moved to a secure terminal. The screen cast a cold glow against my face as I logged into the system. Search bar. Input, Chloe Sharma, address, employer, public-facing work history, verified social handles. I wasn't guessing, I wasn't speculating. I was building an evidence case based entirely on her own digital footprint. Every Instagram post calling me her spy sister. Every TikTok where she joked about sending classified birthday love. Every tagged photo near restricted buildings, ones she thought were funny, not dangerous. She'd built her entire identity around being visible. Now that visibility was her undoing. The system didn't care that she was a sister. It didn't care that she meant no harm. It saw risk, exposure, possible compromise. It treated her accordingly. I uploaded everything, not with malice, but with purpose. I wasn't doing this to her, I was doing this because of her. She had entered my world, uninvited, careless, loud, and now she would face it, all of it. Observation Room 2 has no scent, no color, no warmth, just a pane of one-way glass and a long gray hallway behind it. I stood there quietly, arms crossed, watching my sister on the other side of the glass. She looked out of place in Interrogation Room 3, too polished, too bright. Her energy, once so magnetic in family settings, now sat awkward and brittle under the overhead fluorescence. She paced the room, heels clicking against the tile like she was preparing to audition instead of being processed. Still believing somehow that she was in control, that this was all a mistake, that I had gotten myself into trouble, and she was just here to help me out of it. She didn't understand. This room wasn't a place where charm worked. This wasn't a family dinner where attention bought affection. This was a box designed to strip you down, not physically, but psychologically. No windows, no mirrors, no clutter, just silence and consequence. 2 military police officers escorted her in. She looked surprised when they didn't smile, when they left her alone. She didn't sit. She began rehearsing in her head. I could see it in her body language, hands flexing, lips moving, eyes darting. She would threaten legal action. She'd drop our father's name. She'd play outraged victim until someone took her seriously. She didn't know yet that I was the one writing the rules now. The door opened again. Colonel Evans entered with his tablet in hand and a posture that could stop a storm. He didn't sit. He didn't offer pleasantries. He began with her name. "Chloe Sharma, you are the sender of a package that triggered a level 4 security alert at this facility." Chloe laughed, but it sounded wrong, forced. "It was a birthday present," she said, shaking her head. "You can't be serious." The colonel didn't blink. The package contained a known hostile intelligence code phrase and was addressed to a protected signals asset. She blinked, faltered. "What? No, it's an inside joke. Ask Anya, she'll tell you." He cut her off. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "We are currently determining whether your intent was coerced, compromised, or witting." The air went still. Those weren't casual words. That was treason language. Words with real weight. Words that come with federal charges and permanent clearance revocation. She turned pale. And then the door opened again, and I walked in. Not in cuffs, not in tears, not little Anya. I was in full uniform, ribbons and insignia perfectly aligned. I carried a slim blue file folder with a classified cover sheet. I took my place beside Colonel Evans. We stood as one. I didn't look at her. Sir, I said, my voice crisp, I've completed the preliminary threat assessment on the individual. Individual, not Chloe, not my sister. Just a subject in an ongoing investigation. She turned toward me, stunned. Anya? She whispered, eyes wide, voice cracking. And I finally looked at her. My gaze was cold, controlled. The phrase she used, I said, is a recognition signal linked to an SVR sleeper cell. Its usage caused us to extract 3 embedded field agents. The operational cost was significant. Her face broke. All the pieces fell at once, confusion, shame, horror. This wasn't a misunderstanding, it wasn't a bad joke. It was real. Then Colonel Evans delivered the final cut. Your sister, he said, is not a clerk. She is a specialist in signals intelligence. Call sign Echo 7. She is the lead analyst for the counterintelligence division currently investigating this breach. He stepped forward. Her name is on the official report, because she put it there. That was it. That was the moment she saw me, really saw me. Not the quiet girl in the corner, not the awkward sister at Christmas, but Echo 7, a name that carried weight in a world Chloe had never even tried to understand. 6 hours after that interrogation, Chloe walked out of the room a different person. Gone was the influencer smile, the curated posture. She looked small, shaken. Her face was pale, her mascara smudged. In her hands, she clutched 2 documents, the same way someone might carry a baby bird they didn't know how to hold. A national security letter and a non-disclosure agreement, both signed, both legally binding. She was no longer just Chloe, the social media strategist. She was now a documented national security concern, flagged, cautioned, monitored. She spotted me down the hallway, talking with 2 other analysts. We were reviewing a situation on a shared tablet, another threat, another mission. She stepped toward me, her mouth open to speak. I didn't wait to hear what she'd say. I met her eyes just for a moment and gave her a nod, not warm, not cruel, just final. Then I turned my back on her. I wasn't angry, I wasn't bitter. I was simply finished. As I walked away, my voice joined the low hum of operational chatter. The hallway swallowed her. For the first time in our lives, she was the invisible one, and I finally understood the truth. I had never needed her to see me. 6 months passed. The stripes on my uniform changed, promotion, new rank, Lieutenant Anna Sharma. I stood at a podium in a secure auditorium, facing a room full of fresh intelligence analysts. They were eager, nervous, reminding me of who I used to be. Behind me, a presentation slide flickered on the large screen. It read, Case File 73B, Domestic Origin Anomaly. The case study was fully anonymized, scrubbed clean of names, just data and cause and effect logic. But I didn't need the names to remember, it was my story. A package, a joke, a system that didn't laugh. And a decision, to follow the rules even when it hurt. I walked them through it all. How a careless phrase set off a protocol designed to protect national security. How intent doesn't negate risk. How even family can become liabilities if the line gets blurred. I wasn't telling a tragedy, I was teaching a principle. And for the first time, the past wasn't heavy, it was just a lesson plan. After the room cleared, Colonel Evans approached me. For once, he smiled, just a little. That was well done, Lieutenant, he said. And coming from him, it meant more than any "I'm proud of you" I ever begged for at home. You turned personal fallout into professional strength. That's the mark of leadership. I nodded, not because I needed the praise, but because I knew I had earned it. A few weeks later, in my new office, larger, brighter, with a view of the facility, I was mapping out a new operation, real-time threat modeling, high stakes, zero room for distraction. Then a notification popped up. From Chloe Sharma, subject, I'm so sorry. I stared at it for a while. The thing I used to want more than anything. An apology. I opened it slowly. It was long, rambling, a monologue filled with self-pity, excuses, regret. She talked about how she didn't know, how she never meant to hurt me, how our parents were devastated. She was sorry for what had happened to her, not what she'd done to me. I read the first few paragraphs, then I stopped. Because I realized something. Her validation was no longer a currency I accepted. The debt had been paid, the ledger closed. I moved my cursor to the top of the screen. Click Archive. The email disappeared, and I turned back to my map. A new mission awaited, and for the first time in my life, my peace was entirely mine. Sometimes the people closest to us are the ones who see us the least. Sometimes the loudest voices in the room drown out the quiet power holding everything together. But here's the truth. You don't need validation from those who never tried to understand you. You don't need to shout to be heard in the right rooms. You just need to stand tall, act with integrity, and let your actions echo louder than their silence. Maybe you've been the invisible one, the underestimated one. Maybe you've had to walk away from the people who only loved the version of you that stayed small. But just like Anna Sharma, Echo 7, your strength doesn't come from being seen. It comes from knowing who you are when no one's watching, and when the time comes, from choosing courage over comfort every single time. If this story touched something inside you, if you've ever had to fight quietly to prove your worth, don't carry it alone. Share your truth in the comments because at Sweet Revenge Happy Ending, your story matters. Your strength is not a secret here. And remember, the most powerful kind of revenge is peace.